She just lost her father.
I'm gonna kill my dad, Dad.
I'm sick, Dot, and I hate it.
Tonight's the night, Dad.
Dot is a high school student and a loner. She sat alone in the cafeteria and observed the other students. At her desk, Nina strikes up a conversation with her friend Michelle, discussing Connor, a very popular student. Meanwhile, Do's teacher, Janice, tries to offer to be her companion, but Dot, wary of the social consequences, chooses to distance herself, choosing instead to spend her days secluded in school bathroom, keeping a solitary, emotional attitude. Nina then brings Dot out of hiding, and they go home together. Dot, struggling with deafness and muteness after the tragic loss of her father, embraced loneliness. She now lives with Nina and her parents, Paul and Olivia, who welcomed her into their family after she was orphaned. That day during a meeting at a pharmacy, Janice expressed concern for Do's health to Paul, who made light of Do's difficult circumstances but reassured the teacher of her attentive care, them and Do's overall stability. He then buys antibiotics for his wife and goes home. Paul greets his daughters when he gets home. He then finds his wife, Olivia, sitting on the floor, tired of doing house renovations. Paul carries her to their bedroom and puts her on the bed. He then gives his wife her medication and lets her rest. Moments later, Paul and his daughters are having dinner. They talk to the girls about their day. He then suggests learning sign language so they can communicate better with Dot. Nina isn't interested and tells her dad that she'll spend the night at Michelle's house. The next day, Dot and Connor become partners for an experiment in their biology class. Later at the cafeteria, Michelle gets jealous of Dot because Michelle wants Connor's sausage. Michelle then asks if Nina is seeing someone. She says that Nina needs to pop her balloon before graduation to avoid failing in life. Later that day, Dot plays the piano in the school's music room. Connor passes by and notices her. He also starts developing feelings for her. He then leaves moments later with his friends. One night, Dot wakes up troubled by her father's death. She sits on the floor and opens a box. Inside is a plastic bag that contains her father's ashes. Dot dips her fingers inside the plastic bag. She then tastes the ashes and spreads them on her face. After a distressing encounter, she retreats to the bathroom to wash her face, taking a moment there to reflect on the gravity of the unsettling situation she just experienced. On the way back to her room, she passes Nina's room and hears noises. She peeks at the door and catches Paul getting intimate with his daughter. Dot goes back to her room and pretends to see nothing. During dinner the next day, Nina asks her parents if she can hang out with Michelle. Paul denies her request, so she starts discreetly seducing him. Using their incestuous relationship, Nina makes her father give in and grant her wishes. Later, Dot seeks permission from Olivia to go to the movies. Since Olivia is unable to drive, Paul takes on the responsibility of driving Dot to the movie theater. Throughout the journey, Do's expression is fraught with concern. Once at the theater, Dot, from a distance, observes Nina mingling with her friends, her worry palpable. That night, Dot struggles with insomnia and attempts to leave her room, but retreats and feigns sleep upon noticing Paul descending the stairs. Paul enters her room, initiating a confession about his deep-seated issues, revealing that he had adopted Dot in a flawed attempt to overcome his incestuous impulses. After talking about his incestuous tendencies toward his daughter, he leaves the room. Meanwhile, Nina spends the night at Michelle's house. Michelle asks Nina if there is anywhere in the world she wants to go. Nina answers that she wants to get as far away as possible from where she lives. The next day, Connor and his friend invite Nina and Michelle to hang out. Uninterested, Nina makes up an excuse and Michelle gets pissed. Michelle then tries to convince Nina to change her mind because she needs her to be there. Annoyed by her friend's behavior, Nina leaves for her next class. Later in the afternoon, Nina comes home early and finds Dot playing the family's piano. The piano strings break, and she hears Dot swearing. Dot then starts vocally harmonizing with the piano strings to tune them. Nina is surprised to learn the truth about Dot. It turns out Dot was pretending to be mute and deaf all this time. Nina walks back to the door and slams it to alert Dot. She then walks in and sees her pretending to be deaf and mute again. Nina decides to keep quiet about her recent discovery. The next day, Nina talks to Dot in the school cafeteria. Nina pretends she still doesn't know that Dot is lying about her condition. She tells Dot about her inappropriate relationship with her own father. Nina tells her about hating and liking the abuse her father does. She then tells Dot that she is planning to kill him. Dot continues pretending she is deaf and doesn't react to Nina. Later, Connor watches Dot play the piano in the music room again. When Dot notices him, he comes inside the room and tries talking to her. Connor expresses a desire for a more intimate encounter with Dot, but she is not interested and chooses to distance herself from him. Undeterred, Connor later visits Doe's home, seeking Paul and Olivia's approval to accompany Dot to the library for academic purposes. Concurrently, Michelle shows up and discreetly passes a paper bag to Nina. Dot suspects the bag might contain a gun, possibly intended for Nina to use against her father. Despite her suspicions, Dot remains silent and departs for the library with Connor, while Nina and Michelle spend time in her room, engaging in the mundane activity of polishing their nails. Sometime later, Paul tells Nina to send her friend home because he wants to have some alone time with her. Unable to do anything, Nina tells Michelle to go home. Meanwhile, Dot sees an ambulance pass by while having a date with Connor. Fearing that Nina might have killed her father, she quickly heads home. She then sees the bag that Michelle brought earlier. After checking it, she only finds books and no gun. When she passes by Nina's room, she catches Paul on top of Nina again. She decides to give his stepfather blue balls by breaking a vase in the hallway. Paul leaves, and Nina helps her clean the mess. Dot comforts Nina that night by staying in her bedroom. The next day, Nina tells Dot that she will kill Paul for sure at midnight. To show how serious she was, Nina burns the face of her teddy bear. Dot tries calling the Department of Child Welfare to stop Nina, but she changes her mind. That night, Dot takes Connor to the swimming pool after a basketball game. While the two are alone, Connor decides to spill his secrets to her. He believes his secrets will be safe because Dot is deaf and mute. He reveals that he has attention deficit disorder and has a chronic masturbation problem. At their home, Paul and Olivia engage in a heated discussion concerning Nina's future. Exhausted by her husband's persistent complaints, Olivia attempts to seduce him, hoping to quell his nagging. However, her efforts prove futile as Paul is resolute in conserving his energy for an inappropriate relationship with Nina. Meanwhile, by the swimming pool, as Connor continues to share his secrets, Dot, perhaps seeking to escape the conversation or driven by other motives, decides to seduce him, which effectively distracts him, leading to an intimate encounter. Upon returning home, Nina is met by a restless Paul, while Dot, noting the late hour and having momentarily silenced Connor, rushes back. At home, Paul finds Nina preparing her cheerleader uniform, intensifying the unsettling atmosphere in their household. Ready for some lovin', Paul tries to make a move on his daughter. Nina stops him and tries to proceed with her plan to kill Paul. She tells him to close his eyes and sit on the bed so she can reveal her surprise. She grabs the hot iron and approaches him. As she is about to burn Paul's face with the iron, Dot arrives, so Nina abandons her plan. Since Paul is still waiting for Nina's surprise, Nina decides to lie and tell him that she is pregnant. She asks him for $1,000 so she can get an abortion. Hearing the scandal that may ensue, Paul agrees to give her the money the next day. The next day, Connor asks Dot out for the school spring dance. Dot refuses him, but Connor doesn't give up that easily. The following night, Nina and Dot prepare for the spring dance. Nina tells Dot that she will kill Paul that night and then run away using the abortion money he gives. She tells her that she plans to work as a stripper and find success in life that way. Before the girls leave for the spring dance, Paul confronts Nina about her pregnancy. It turns out that Paul has been peeking inside Nina's purse and saw tampons inside of it. When he discovers his daughter has cheated on him, Paul's frustration turns to anger, causing him to aggressively confront Nina. As this heated exchange took place upstairs, Dot was positioned downstairs, immersed in playing the piano. Moments later, the confrontation turns violent, and Paul decides to force himself on Nina. Olivia hears the screams of her daughter, but is unable to act. Dot decides to save Nina from Paul. She uses a piano wire to strangle Paul. Paul, who overpowered the physically fit Nina, is powerless against the fragile-looking Dot, so he dies. Olivia sees what happened but is unfazed. Olivia is shocked that Dot can speak and hear. Olivia was cognizant of the inappropriate relationship between Paul and Nina but felt incapacitated to intervene. Shortly after this realization, Michelle comes to escort Nina and Dot to a dance. Quickly shifting out of their blood-stained attire, the sisters head to the event. At the spring dance, Dot is seen dancing with Connor but unexpectedly departs to find Nina indicating a pressing need or concern that pulls her away from her dance partner. Connor tries to stop her and finds out that she isn't deaf and mute after all. He now realizes how stupid it was to reveal that he has a chronic masturbation problem. Angry and ashamed because of Doe's deception, Connor storms out. Shortly after, Dot and Nina leave the dance in a rush and go to a nearby riverbank. There, they bury the backpack that contained their clothes soaked in Paul's blood. Nina then asks why Dot lied about being deaf and mute all this time. Dot tells her that she started pretending to be mute and deaf when her mother died while she was still a child. She felt closer to her father when communicating through sign language only. Nina accepts Doe's explanation, and the two leave the riverbank to go home. When the sisters arrive at home, they see police cars all over the place. Shortly after, they find the police arresting Olivia. It turns out that she turned herself in for the murder of Paul. She is doing all of this to protect her daughters. Before entering a police car, Olivia apologizes to Nina. She reveals that she knew about Paul sexually abusing her, but did nothing to stop him. Olivia made it look like she killed Paul because she could no longer bear seeing him sexually abuse his daughter. The next day, Nina plays the piano while Dot sits on the floor and watches her. Dot then approaches Nina and joins her in playing the piano. Without any family left, the two must take care of each other from now on. What a depressing movie. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.